In this video, I want to talk about how I healed my chronic gut issues for good. I get so many people ask me about how I did it, and this is it. I feel like so many of us these days are struggling with digestive issues, leaky gut, irritable bowel syndrome, SIBO, and I know it's super hard to heal from it. And it took me a very long time. And so I feel like it's necessary to make this video because it wasn't an easy journey, but I did it. I came out the other side. My gut is healed. I can basically eat anything and everything, and I'm fine. But back then, so I had a first episode of digestive issues when I was 23, in my early 20s or so. This was mainly related, as it turned out afterwards, because mainly related to me being in the queer closet, and I hadn't had my coming out yet. And eventually, though, I did have my coming out, and the digestive issues and also the skin issues that I had at the time completely disappeared within weeks. So that was pretty clear, pretty straightforward. So then for several years, I was doing really good. My gut was great. But then in 2017, I was in this really unhealthy dating situation with this woman, and it was very intense. And that's when my gut issues came back, and they came back even worse, I should say. And I tried out everything for several years. And, I was struggling with the classics, right? Bloating, just like this inflammatory pain. I had cramps a couple of hours after eating. It got especially bad in the evenings. It just got worse and worse during the day. I also struggled with brain fog, really bad brain fog. I had a really hard time to concentrate and focus. I had really low energy, especially after I had my first meal of the day. And it was just a really hard time for me. It was really uncomfortable. I had a fair amount of gas, and that was not nice. And so I really isolated myself as well at times when it was really bad, because it was just too uncomfortable to be around other people and actually have a good time socializing. And so it was rough. And every single day was tough. It was, it was all I was thinking about. It really occupied my whole being. And I was lucky that I think it was about 6 months later that I met a woman who was a specialist in digestive issues. And she actually moved into the house that I was living in. It was a shared house with several people. And once I spoke to her and I shared with her my issues, it was pretty clear that it was probably something like SIBO. And what I'm going to be sharing with you in this video is not just specific for SIBO. I think it relates to all sorts of digestive issues, or most digestive issues that are diagnosed as IBS or leaky gut, any of that kind. And now, my issue was, one of the reasons though why it took me so long, it did take me about 3.5 years to fully heal my gut, which is a long time. And I don't think it has to take this long at all. In my case, though, one of the reasons it did take this long was because I was stuck in, dysregulated nervous system. I was stuck in this lifestyle that I was living that was really not very conducive to regulating my nervous system. I kept finding myself in unhealthy relationships and dating scenarios. And so I was dealing with a lot of anxious attachment. And so the reason it took me so much longer is because I didn't know much about, regulating a nervous system. I didn't know much about the stress response in my body. And I didn't know much about breathing and breath work and all these things. And so I think that was definitely one of the reasons it took me longer than it needed to. And so during those 3.5 years, I tried out everything. I literally tried out everything. And a lot of these things that I tried out, they worked temporarily, but it wasn't until I really put the pieces together eventually, and I'll share them with you later on in this video. But that I really added on a few crucial things on my healing journey that it got so much better and eventually healed completely. One of the main reasons that so many of us struggle with digestive issues is because we are way more in sympathetic mode than we should be. We spend a lot more time in fight or flight, basically, and not enough time in parasympathetic mode. So our nervous system, our bodies are, activated a lot of time, and just way more than is healthy. And we need to be in parasympathetic mode, in rest and digest mode. It's called that, right? For our digestion to work properly. So when we're experiencing chronic stress, or we have a lot of unresolved trauma and unprocessed emotions, our system is in a stress response that's chronic. And so we don't actually allow our bodies to heal. We don't allow our digestive system to do its job, right? Because we're just not in parasympathetic rest and digest mode enough. Okay, so what actually helped me heal? So first off, I was really lucky that I met this woman who was specialized in digestive issues and also SIBO. And through her, I ended up I got tested for SIBO. I had to do this breath test, and it came back very positive. And she then put me on a FODMAP diet. That's what that diet is called. FODMAP stands for a lot of big words that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. But essentially, it's a very strict diet. It's not meant to be forever. It's meant to be temporary. But it's basically very strict. So no carbs, or mostly no carbs. And so no gluten, no wheat, no pasta, no rice, no sugar, no beans, so many things. Like I think most lactose and fructose are not good. And so I was very limited, especially because at the time I was a strict vegan still. And it was very hard on a vegan diet. I think it's much easier if you are a omnivore and you actually eat meat and fish and things like that. But I did make it work somehow. And at the time I was living in Bali, and I actually had this food service, and that she organized, and they prepared those FODMAP meals for me and delivered them to me. And so that was really good because I didn't have to worry too much about it while I was cooking or going out to eat, which was really impossible going out to eat on the FODMAP diet. So yes, it is a very strict diet. I think I did it for at least 3 months. I want to say. And that made things already much better. It definitely took the gas off in my digestive tract, and just taking out a lot of things that were causing a lot of the inflammation was already a really big step. And I highly recommend working with a gut healing and nutrition specialist to really make sure that you're doing it right. I think there's a lot of things that we can do wrong, actually. So I will link the woman that I worked with. She also became a friend eventually. Her name's Kirsten Green, and I can highly recommend her. She's really, really awesome. And so I will put her contact details in the description below. But of course, there's many people out there these days. There's also a book out now on healing SIBO. I think it's just called Healing SIBO that you can check out on Amazon. And yeah, there's a ton of people out there these days healing people from chronic gut issues. But this specific person that I work with, I can just, because I worked with her and she's amazing, I can highly recommend her. And the other thing, also actually in addition to all the things you can't eat, but definitely no alcohol and definitely also no caffeine. Those are actually the two things at the time I still struggled to not consume because my nervous system was still very dysregulated, and I was using caffeine in the mornings, but also during the day, and then alcohol in the evenings to actually regulate myself, to soothe myself. Because I was going through a really rough time back then for several years. And but now looking back, if I had quit alcohol and caffeine while I was doing the diet, I think it would have been a lot more effective. So today I'm wiser and smarter. I would definitely stop drinking alcohol and caffeine. I could have saved myself just so much pain. But alcohol is just lots of sugars in alcohol, so that is generally bad. But it's also a dysregulator for your nervous system. And caffeine is an adrenalizer, so that if you're already dysregulated, then caffeine will just kind of make that worse. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't know, what really the effects of caffeine are. We downplay the effects of caffeine, but especially when it comes to healing inflammation in the body, healing digestive issues, and healing our nervous system, I think there's no way around it. Now, alongside the diet, she also put me onto a natural supplement protocol. So I took a lot of supplements every day, and one of them was a natural antibiotic. And from what I understand is that many traditional doctors, they would prescribe normal antibiotics to treat SIBO. And apparently that just really doesn't work. The SIBO just keeps coming back. And so it makes a lot more sense to use natural supplements, a natural antibiotic. I forget all the specifics of what kind of supplements I took. But I think that's really also something that you should figure out with a specialist. And so it's really worthwhile paying someone to guide you through this journey. I do remember, though, that oregano oil was something that I used for quite some time on and off. That really helped me, especially when it was really bad. And then eventually, I also started working with a functional doctor who, was he just had a really holistic approach. And I did blood work with him and tested all sorts of biomarkers, my hormones. We did urine tests. We did a stool test for my microbiome. And I had a catalog full of results after the test came back. And then he prescribed me also natural supplements. So this was after the first phase was done with the FODMAP diet, taking the first round of natural supplements to kind of get things back into balance. And then eventually, it took quite some time actually until I found that functional doctor. But that was that next phase where he really looked at my overall biomarkers and hormones and really made sure that we're getting everything back into balance. And he also prescribed me this one probiotic that really, really helped me. And one thing I also remember was that you totally shouldn't take probiotics when you struggle with SIBO, because it can make things worse. Also something that, we always think probiotics is a really good thing. And so, but eventually once I was through that phase, eventually it did make sense to take probiotics. And he just knew exactly which kind I needed to take because I tried out lots of different probiotics, but we really needed to test my microbiome to see which one I needed. So I think especially when it comes to these kind of supplements and overall, on social media, there's so many people suggesting we take this supplement and this and this and that, but really, I think it really only makes sense to go get tested, get all your blood work done, get your hormones tested, get your microbiome tested, and then on the basis of the results, you then go and get sort of a custom list of supplements for you to take. I think everything else is just pretty useless, to be honest. Right. So functional doctor, that was another huge step. I also worked with osteopaths on and off during that healing phase. And some of them were really awesome because they kind of, the way they massaged my gut and, I had some osteopath sessions that really, really helped me. And that just kind of supported my healing in a way. And so that can just be something that I wouldn't rely too much on osteopathic treatments, but I think as a like a supportive add-on, I think they can be quite helpful, especially when things are really bad. Then the next thing is super, super important, and that is something that took me a long time to really take seriously and to understand and to implement and integrate into my life. And that is nervous system regulation. Like just doing the diet and taking the supplements and all of that. It's definitely going to be an important part of the healing journey, but it won't heal your digestive issues for good. So that was like that piece that I was still struggling with. I was maybe 70% better, but there were still the remaining 30% that I was still struggling with. And so learning about the nervous system, learning about the stress response, learning about trauma and the effects on the nervous system, and learning about how emotions work and how when we suppress emotions, how that affects our bodies, that was essential. And eventually I discovered the breath and I learned about functional breathing. So that's something that is really and should be the foundation of any nervous system regulation protocol, is really establishing a functional breathing pattern, nose breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, slow breathing on a daily basis, mouth taping at night, things like that. I'm really simplifying this, okay? I'm just wanting you to give an overall sort of idea. But of course, there's a lot of nuance to a lot of these tips and recommendations and things that worked for me. The next one was daily regulating breathing practices. So I remember doing Wim Hof breathing for, I think it was 3 months. And it totally didn't help. But I was so hopeful because I read his books. I was in these Facebook groups where people were talking about all these amazing effects, which turned out to be very temporary, actually, for many people. And so it didn't do much for me. And eventually I quit and then discovered regulating breathing practices, which weren't as attractive and as exciting as hyperventilation practices, but they really helped to regulate my nervous system, to calm myself down and really shift myself into a parasympathetic state by activating the vagus nerve. So just simple practices like coherence breathing, alternate nostril breathing, box breathing, these kinds of practices, or even just diaphragmatic breathing, right? Were really, really helpful. And then also adding on other sort of regulating practices, such as doing yoga nidras, like body scans, extended body scans, or also called NSDR these days, non-sleep deep rest. Really awesome to do in the afternoon, especially. And then I got a Shakti mat. I love Shakti mats. I think I don't know. For me, they really work. Like I lie down on my Shakti mat and within like 5 minutes, I'm zenned out. I kind of tune out a bit. And then after about 20 or 30 minutes, I sort of, I come back naturally. And I really feel like it just calms me down instantly. So that's also a really, really good idea. Sometimes I do yoga nidras while I'm on a Shakti mat. And just generally spending more time in parasympathetic mode, going out in nature, spending a lot of time outside, going on walks. And then the other big factor that was really, really necessary was trauma healing. And even though I have been on a trauma healing journey for many, many, many years now, it really took me until I found somatic practices and somatic psychotherapy, until I found transformational breathwork, that I really noticed a huge shift also in my health, and especially also with my digestion. And I guess I eventually understood that if we don't heal the underlying issues, our body will have a really hard time to heal. It's almost impossible. It's just come back. It's just really hard for our bodies to come back into a state of balance if we don't actually heal the underlying traumas and find the root cause of our issues. And so, yes, somatic psychotherapy, somatic experiencing, NARM, those were the kind of modalities that really, really helped me. And especially also transformational breathwork, conscious connected breathing. A huge game changer, to really access my unconscious and work with material that I just yeah, struggled to deal with. And then lastly, another huge component of this is that we actually have to make lifestyle changes. Like if we just keep going through life the way we have been, our bodies are still kind of keep going back into the sympathetic side and spend a lot of time there. And it's whatever other things that we're doing, they will really only work if we adjust our lives to where we create the conditions for our bodies to heal. And so for me, that meant really slowing down my life. It meant not traveling as much anymore. It meant, building a home, creating community. It meant getting out of toxic dating situations and stop holding on to unhealthy relationships. It meant learning how to set boundaries. And so overall, it really meant removing stressors from my life. And relationship was a big source of stress for me. And the traveling was as well, even though I would have never admitted that, I think, for the longest time. But yeah, really changing my lifestyle, changing how I live my day to day, and really embracing a slower life was another huge game changer, so that my body got used to being more in a parasympathetic state, got used to living a more boring life. And yeah, and today I can happily say that I'm healthy. My gut is healthy. My skin is healthy. And I'm super grateful that I've made it this far and recovered, because it was a really rough time. And I wish the same for you. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in the comments below. And with that, thanks so much, and bye.